Hello, everyone. Let me know if I'm audible. I actually have a secret guest today, so he'll be joining us very shortly. Let's give him a call. Hello, hello.
Hello. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello. Is my guest audible? People in the audience, please let me know. Then we can get the show on the road. But only once I have confirmation.
I'm speaking. People
You are
hear me.
indeed.
I'm speaking. There's a speaking happening.
Brilliant. You're audible. All right. So I'm joined by, what do you want to go by? You've been many names over the past, Bunny Tooth, etc.
Medicare is fine.
Medicare is fine? Okay, Jim. How's the cancer doing, by the way? You sound good.
Yeah, pretty good. The doctor says I'm about to be on shit, I forgot what the hell that's called. The hell is that called? Remission.
He has indolent lymphoma, I think, or something like that. Indolent lymphoma, that's what it is. Guess is a little low.
Yeah.
Can you boost yourself at all?
Let me see. Okay, I can speak a bit, more, I guess, firm and higher.
It looks like it's coming in loud on my end, like the bar is going up. So, I think we might just have to come to peace with the fact that you're going to be a little bit quiet for this one.
Yeah, I'll try to speak louder and more firm and more Medicare.
Exactly. All right, so what are we doing? We're looking at this monstrosity by our favorite YouTube historian, What If Altist, on how envy drives society, history, and the left. And I see he's omitted a comma after history, but in any case, we'll just do it. Let me know if or actually, no, we need to figure this out quickly because you can't see what I'm looking at. Hang on.
Oh yeah. I was
Yeah.
about to ask.
That's no good. Okay, hang on. Let me see if so maybe what I do is I share that, and then
I'm so used to StreamYard.
yeah, this is it's so much, like, you can do more with it, but it's also just okay. I think can you see now?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, now when
Wait, hold on. I think you have the wrong video. Isn't this ContraPoints video?
No, this is the What If Altist one. They're just both on Envy.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a joke. Okay, sorry. You've mistaken me
Yes.
for somebody with a sense of humor, unfortunately.
I know. Fucked up on that one. There's no comedy on this stream.
No.
We're all serious.
None.
Mad critiques.
Too traumatized and just mentally blasted to register literally anything. I feel nothing. Just numbness and hate. Okay, let's go. Let me know if you can hear it.
In Christianity, envy is the worst of sins.
Loud
This
and
is
clear.
since all the others at least have some value to the world besides being sins
That's wrong. Pride is the worst of sins. Because, like, the whole Satan thing. But whatever.
themselves. Although pride is a sin, some of the greatest acts of heroism of all time were built off pride. Or the
Wait, he even mentions pride. How does he get this wrong?
Bro, this is the first fucking
Like,
12.
envy is not the worst sin in Christianity. It's specifically pride. That's like...
desire to not let one's status be thrown into the dirt. Lust is how babies are made and the world goes round. However, envy has no positive aim whatsoever.
If lust was how babies are made, then the sex-positive movement wouldn't have to be a thing.
For those
Lust
that don't
is
know,
how babies are made. Okay, this is something I love. Everybody in the chat, please tell me if you like this as well. Out of nowhere, he always just says some random fucking shit and says it in the most meme. Someone needs to make a compilation of like just all of those times where he just like goes off to the side and says some random shit. But yeah, just continue on.
Just like what if all this without context?
Yeah, exactly like that.
I could make that. It'd be like 10 hours long at this point.
Just like his top hits.
Exactly, yeah. Lust is how babies are made. I guess gay people don't exist then.
Desire to tear down what others have. Not for any gain of yours, really. That's more jealousy. If your best friend is dating a really attractive, wonderful in every way girl and you want her, that's jealousy. If you want both of them to suffer at no gain to yourself since they have happiness that you can't experience, that's envy. Envy's an ugly emotion that ennobles no one, and because of it, we've tried to hide it. However, it's still powerful, and as we'll talk about in this video, has driven much of history and human society in ways few other things have. As we'll also see, it's powering the world of today in ways few other things are. If the Victorians were terrified to talk about sex, we're terrified to talk about envy. When you see how envy controls the modern world, you'll be horrified. But first, we need to see why envy exists and how we got where we are.
Okay, real quick. Placing bets. He has to bring up communist revolution. He has to.
Well, of course.
Like he has to bring that up.
It's how envy drives the left. It's not just how envy drives society history.
Oh well, shit. It says fuck. I didn't even notice that. Is there any better is there more risky bets to place? Honestly, I don't really know. I guess the feminist movement. I think maybe the feminist movement might be brought up.
Okay, let's put that one to the list. So the feminist movement. I'm gonna say is gonna put workers' rights movements down to envy. Unions. Things
He's
like
probably
that.
gonna say some stuff about China outside of it being communist. I just feel like there has to be some sort of Asian anti-Asian-ness in this.
So you think outside of it being communist, just Chinese society is
Yeah,
obvious?
or maybe not just Chinese. Just generally there has to be some Orientalism. I think because he's known to do that, so it has to be there.
Oh, 100%. He's incapable of talking about anywhere outside of Europe.
Yeah, because this is a 30-minute video. Okay, but we'll leave this on the list. If anyone wants to add anything else in the comments, just do that. Place your bets, guys.
Stop telling my chat what to do. I'm in charge here.
Not for long.
Apparently.
The Western Christian world grew out of the crumbling Roman Empire, and we've envied the unity and dominance of Rome ever since. Now you can enjoy the glory of Rome with a great series on Magellan TV called...
Oh, for fuck's sake, no. We're not doing that. Hang on. Okay, back to the video.
One of the problems of the modern Western world is that we take things working for granted since we never get to see what the world's like when those things aren't working. Few of us have ever had to worry about dying of malaria or ending up in an arranged marriage we hate. In the same way that technology has made our lives so much easier, so has social evolution. Over time, our societies have evolved towards greater and greater efficiency and less immorality and cruelty. For example, just look at...
Hang on, what is this? An example of this is this Assyrian stele. Do you know how to pronounce... It should be stele, right? It's called a stele? Or a stele? Stele?
I honestly... You're barking up the wrong tree right here.
Which shows 2 Assyrian soldiers forcing a defeated Babylonian to grind his own family's bones. Lovely. This is a public propaganda statement of which was normal in that era. Okay.
The Bronze Age governments would literally brag about how many of their opponents they butchered and how many of their own people they sacrificed to honor the deaths of their kings. However, over a multi-thousand-year period, those kinds of governments were continually outcompeted by kinder regimes that could pull on their population's loyalties. Similarly, how a person's life used to be dominated by countless superstitions.
I zoned out for a sec.
He basically was saying that okay, he brought up the whole Assyrian example, right, of them grinding bones, and he's saying that more I guess ethical regimes outcompeted them basically.
Well,
so we're the Romans the most ethical society or some shit, or
no, I think actually I guarantee this is what happened. Hardcore History has a podcast. Well, it is a podcast, but they have an episode on the Persians. And he goes into how the Persians, despite being brutal, were relatively speaking, they were far more, humane and benevolent compared to the Assyrians and whatnot who came before, who they conquered, because they came in and they did business, basically. They incorporated people into the empire, and they demanded tribute, but they also, gave benefits, and they allowed these communities to stay sort of intact. So that's one thing that's accurate in the film 300, where he's I will make a warlord of all Greece. It's he would have actually done that. He would have actually allowed them to retain their culture and everything. He would have just called upon their armies when he wanted to go and conquer somebody else, and he would have extracted a tribute. But But I guarantee you 100% he just listened to that and just vomited it out onto the screen here. And that's where this is coming from. Because there's no way in hell he's gone into this in any depth.
Yeah, especially with this shitty map.
How a person's life used to be dominated by countless superstitions and taboos that made life significantly harder than today by trying to pay attention to all of them. We don't seem to put together that in the same way we have to maintain the technological systems that hold up our modern society, like bridges, agricultural systems, and the like to keep them functioning, our social norms are the same. Without struggle and effort, human societies degrade back to base, disgusting norms. One of those norms is envy, which is extremely powerful across human history, but we've been able to control for centuries with social constructs that mean we can afford to forget how far we've stretched from the normal human condition. Let's start with where humans naturally evolved as hunter-gatherers. Among hunter-gatherer peoples, things are normally shared in the same way things are in a family or a group of friends. Since people were almost always in the move looking for food and resources, people didn't have a lot of possessions.
Okay, just to be clear, we didn't evolve from hunter-gatherers. We were hunter-gatherers at one point. I don't know if he was implying that, but I was getting the distinct impression he thought that that was like a previous stage of our evolution as a species.
I mean, yeah. Also, just I mean, just I don't. I mean, yeah. Also, we have to keep in mind, like, there are still, hunter-gatherers or foraging societies to this very day.
Yeah, that are not unevolved. They just eat differently.
However, that didn't mean these societies were equal. There were large inequities in the amount of sex people had, with 20 to 40% of the male population dying in war and youth, with the chieftain normally having half the women. This world was in a lot of ways zero-sum.
Wait, what the fuck? Wait, hold on. Wait, can you go back to that real quick?
Yeah.
What? Okay, I can't really see it that well. What the hell is this?
So the photo is Prince Mangabell and favorite wives in conspicuously modern dress. So I don't know what this is supposed to represent. And then a percentage of male deaths caused by warfare. I don't know what this has to do with chiefs having...
Okay, this is very weird. Just I mean, I don't know this particular, case, but this just sounds like bullshit from the get-go. Because, I mean, well, first of all, what war is, happening between these hunter-gatherer groups? I don't know if that's extremely, common. And also, this is extremely, context-dependent, on environment and such, right? So, Inuits and, the Khoisan are not, they don't have at all similar environments or similar, social organization, or they don't even hunt the same thing, right? They're not even gathering, the same materials. So that is going to, drastically change what is occurring within their society. So, yeah, I don't...
Is he conflating nomadic with hunter-gatherer?
Yeah, probably.
Because
I don't even know, because who is this? So Prince Manga what?
Well, it doesn't matter who he is because he's wearing modern European clothes, which means that this is not an example case. This is a modern community. But more to the point, hunter-gatherer communities don't typically go to war because they don't have any reason to. You only really go to war when you have territory that you want to hold because you're agricultural, right?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, well, this also gets definitions of war. I mean, there will probably be conflict, a couple people fight a couple people, but that's different than war. It's different than having flanks of troops and battle strategy and whatever. But
well, I guess he's thinking of how people talk about bonobos going to war, where it's just they happen to be patrolling and they encounter another tribe and they fight each other, something like that. That's the kind of thing he has in mind.
So he was a Douala king of the Bantu people, or particularly of a Bantu group.
This guy here,
Bantu,
Prince Mangabell.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I'm seeing here, but I don't know much about the society. But yeah, let's just continue on. There's gonna be plenty more bullshit. So.
Chieftain normally having half the women. This world was in a lot of ways zero-sum, unlike modern capitalism, and so envy evolved as a group hedge against single people doing out...
For the chief to have half the women, the society would have to be extremely small. So we're talking family groups of under 100 people. Because that would be impossible otherwise, yeah.
Outrageous stuff like accumulating all the seal meat in your lodge during a famine and charging your buddies for it. The group dare implicit in envy is something like, we'll burn your whole lodge including the seal meat down, so don't even think about trying it. Hunter-gatherer societies cared a lot about equality and not letting tyrant alpha males seize power. An example is among the Bushmen of South Africa, who, when a young man would make a great kill, will actively tell the young men they're worthless and low value so as not to let their egos get too big. Hunter-gatherer peoples will mock and socially outcast alpha males who try to seize total power over the tribe.
Okay, so fake name
Yeah,
says...
but that's like.
Sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry. There you go.
No, please. No, finish your thought.
I was gonna say, like, the problem with that, and again, this is where, like, again, I get a lot of skepticism, and a good, oh fuck, I probably can get that book. I have it in my shelf, but it's basically like, this is just one example. I mean, even today with the hunter-gatherer groups that we have, they're like what, 10? It's like basically a handful. You know, at the end of the day, we like sure there's somewhat of a similarity, most likely because they have similar conditions. They're not, they're not sedentary, they're not producing their food or whatever. But nonetheless, like, that doesn't necessarily mean that all of them had this, or that even was extremely common. So again, it's kind of like he's just pulling this out of his ass for the most part.
Somebody made a comment here I wanted to respond to. So fake name says not necessarily we're talking about war. Ant species engage in warlike behavior, but again, they have territory. I don't like that language like warlike behavior, because that basically allows you to stretch any exhibition of violence as being war. And war is something super specific. War is when you have the community as an entity fighting with another community as an entity. Like, it's specifically between equivalent types of things, and with the aim of destroying, like, the other thing as an entity that is understood that way. Ants can't go to war because they can't conceive of their enemies in that way.
Yeah, also, real quick,
Yeah.
the book I was referring to, it's really good, just generally for hunter-gatherers. It's called The Life Ways of Hunter-Gatherers, The Foraging Spectrum by Robert L. Kelly. So, if anyone wants to look that up, I'll put it in the comments, in case.
Okay, I'll have to give it a look later.
Finally killing them as a group. Something that always confused me in my personal life was why people were so scared of social pressure. I'm a person who's naturally wired to not care a lot about what others think about me, and I always found it confusing why in high school, for instance, trying hard at things and being earnest was looked down upon while it actually produced amazing results. Similarly, why people are so scared to try things that might fail, even if it costs them nothing but wasted effort and emotion, like starting a business or side hustle, romantically reaching out to a potential partner, or starting a new hobby. This is because our minds are designed for hunter-gatherer communities of a couple dozen or so rather than millions of people.
Sorry, did you say something?
No, I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay, sorry. Oh, thank you, fellow traveler.
The people that survived were those that got along among the small group of people that they'd have to share their lives with. Someone like me would probably have been murdered by the rest of the tribe for showing why some tribal superstition was, from my perspective, clearly false. Most humans are naturally conditioned to get along and undershoot their potential, since without the size of
Oh, is this a source? King of the Mountain, The Nature of Political Leadership. Is that King Louis from the Jungle Book? This is an interesting book on the subject that looks at the psychology of great leaders and quote-unquote great men. The conclusion is that, quote, great men, unquote, are psychologically different from the rest of the population, that they have extreme dominance, courage, and aggression. This is Jordan Peterson shit.
What the fuck is this?
This is a book called King of the Mountain that talks about how great men are psychologically different from the rest of the population. That's...
Yeah, this is... Wait, is this a modern book?
I think this is a modern book.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
I want to look at this at some point. This looks hilarious.
Yeah, maybe if we have time we can look at it after.
Yeah. Thank you, Freckle, for the $10. It's very generous.
Social hierarchies as they are now, there was simply less to gain from extreme risk-taking. From a genetic basis, the people who make up our current political, CEO, and leadership classes in general are insane genetic outliers that are wired to expend massive amounts of effort to succeed by basically gambling being disliked with massive success. In hunter-gatherer...
Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos is as powerful as he is and as rich as he is because he just gambled with people not liking him. That's his explanation for Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos is just an ordinary guy, just an ordinary guy with massive balls, so big he could bounce on them to get to space.
Kills fucking mammoths. This is. I mean, right here, just 5 minutes in, like, we already know, like, this is just bullshit. I mean, I think everyone can see that.
Yeah,
Let's
but I just
yeah.
I just want to dwell on this though. Just Jeff Bezos killing a mammoth. I just love
I
that.
think he can do it. No, I think he can do it.
You think he can do it?
Yeah, he's bald.
This is true. Yes, he has that aerodynamism. Yeah.
community.
He'll just
The
throw
most
himself.
success you could have
Sorry, what's that?
He'll just throw himself at it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, he didn't actually need a rocket to get to space. That's what few people know.
is making a big bison kill. At the same time, not getting along with the group of people you would live with for your entire life would be very dangerous. An interesting story here comes from Haiti, where if a person's walking along and sees their neighbor working in the field, they might ask, "What are you doing?" to which the reply would be, "Hardly working." This is since the neighbor
Of
saying
course.
working hard
Wait, hold on. Can you go back a little bit?
Yes.
Why did he show Dominican Republic and Haiti? I'm wondering what is the context of this picture.
Hang on. Oh, come on. Load, damn you. Oh, there we go. I guess it's just...
What's like the No, I'm saying like what's like the I want to hear like what he said because what's the context?
Oh, well, let's just restart.
An interesting story here comes from Haiti, where if a person's walking along and sees their neighbor working in the field, they might ask, "What are you doing?" to which the reply would be, "Hardly working." This is since the neighbor saying working hard would suggest that they were judging the other person for not working. This is the norm across most cultures. Take the Navajo, who believe that if a person...
So the saying, working hard or hardly working, and you say hardly working. That's a joke, first of all, but I don't know.
Some people in Haiti say this thing. This is most society. Okay.
Like,
I'm sorry. I thought he was gonna get into some shit about like
and they-
Haiti's relationship with Dominican Republic because that's like. Okay, I thought he was gonna get into the Haitian Revolution or something, but thank God he didn't. Hopefully he doesn't get into it.
And they
but yeah.
say it in exquisite English too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
person's happy and lives a good life, he must have taken that from the net happiness in the world, and still might be a wizard that's stealing good fortune from his neighbors. Alternatively, take the East Asian saying, "The tallest blade of grass gets..."
So if there's a productive member of society, he's a wizard who's stealing from his neighbors. Or someone's happy,
Yeah.
I guess. Okay. Good to know.
cut down first, which basically tells people to not show too much initiative and differentiation from the group. The veritable superstitious cult of the evil eye that traditionally existed across Asia and the Mediterranean
Oh, there we
is an
go.
example of envy. In places like Italy, India, or Egypt, people
What the hell
desperately
is
try
this
to...
map? Okay, also, why is it like inner South, like the inland South America, like do they not have that conception?
I don't know what this is. There's no legend. Like, I don't know what the black refers to. I don't know what the yellow refers to. Is this supposed to be like... I don't... Like,
Yeah, he does like I don't know. It's just so weird. Like he does this thing where, because sometimes it's basically just, oh well, the brown people believe in this. That's like the whole meme, right?
Yeah.
But then he doesn't really even commit to that because like, I don't know. I don't know what this is.
Well,
I don't know.
Italy's also taking... Okay, well, hang on. Like, he mentions Italy, right? But I'm looking at Italy here, and Italy's also yellow.
It's half yellow, half black. It's the northern part is black and southern part is yellow.
Which half's the
Or
Catholic
Catholic
part?
or I thought all of it's Catholic. Well, I think
Well,
the southern, if anything.
Apparently not, because the northern part has no soul.
Yeah, that makes sense.
to avoid getting the evil eye or the envious curse of their neighbors that would bring ills upon them. This is because these are societies that haven't really had the rule of law develop, with arbitrary, often cruel authorities.
There was no rule of law in Italy.
This means that pleasing and not offending people, whether you're compatriots in the same social class that you have to live with...
Place where the word law comes from, by the way. No rule of law. Oh, what is this? Social inferiors were normally treated terribly since there was no objective legal system to hold people accountable, so social superiors could behave like monsters and get away with it. A problem with a lot of historic TV... Oh, yeah. There are problems with historic TV, what I felt is. For example, is that it doesn't factor in how inferiors would often slavishly dote on superiors and in the reverse treat them like they were subhuman.
What?
I think he means the superiors would treat the inferiors like they were subhuman. Something to keep in...
I think he's saying the opposite. I think he's saying it doesn't, because he's saying like, okay, well, the inferiors, they did fuck shit. But the problem is that the TV doesn't tell you that the inferiors, they looked at them funny. That's what I think I'm reading here.
I like this language too. Like they would slavishly dote on superiors, like just like it's just dripping with contempt for these lesser beings or something. Something to keep in mind is that even if individuals wanted to be kinder to social inferiors, no, he's talking about the superiors treating the inferiors like subhuman. Even if they wanted to be kinder to social inferiors, they were so bound by class expectation or fear of making others in their group look weak or immoral for not doing so that the society would taboo it.
Source?
I don't know.
Source?
I also don't know what this refers to.
What?
The society would taboo it. Who's the society here?
Who? What? Yeah, like, okay. Also, why is it that this guy is making like hundreds of thousands? Maybe I'm being envious. Hundreds of thousands, and yet he fucking does this kind of editing. Like, what the fuck is this?
I don't know. Either there is no God or he's just allowing him to earn his way into hell or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully the latter.
Or your social superiors that you're dependent upon is really important, since there's no system of fair courts and government if things go wrong. The best way to not get killed as a witch was not to offend people in your local community enough that they'd make up evidence against you that you are a witch. Another great example is that if you look at architecture across Asia, you often see even the wealthy live with very...
See, that's a weird point, because my imagination doesn't go to African communities. My imagination goes to, like, the popular conception of, like, the witch trials and whatnot. So I don't know why on earth he would be construing this as something that's, like, specifically Asian or somewhere without law, even though all these communities had something like law. I mean, there's...
Yeah, they even had a specific, even the law or the, the enforcers or whatever, they had a specific text for this. It was the Malleus Maleficarum, right? They had a particular, inquisitors and shit like that would use they had a particular, not even just that, but it was also, there was another work that preceded it called, like, well, Malleus Maleficarum means the hammer of the witches.
Yeah.
Well, the other one meant, like, the hammer of the Jews. And they would use this to basically, like, get on people that they suspected to be witches, which a lot of it was wrapped in sexism and racism and stuff like that. Well, not really I guess not racism, because racism wasn't existing at the time. But you know what I mean, like
yeah.
discrimination against Jews and Roma and stuff like that.
Well, my history on this isn't great, but my understanding was, like, in Spain, for instance, like during the Spanish Inquisition, they were relatively easy on like heretics and even Muslims. Their principal target was Jews. That was my understanding.
Yeah, I don't know too much about it, but yeah, usually it wasn't something. I mean, people have this conception that it's kind of like this Castlevania thing, where like it's kind of like in Castlevania, right? With
Exactly.
the whole, like the witch, like they have some sort of like doohickey, and like that's a doohickey. That's not God, and then they say like, oh, fuck that, they're a witch, and they burn them at the stake. But no, like this was oftentimes like this was targeted. This was used for justification to target specific groups, and oftentimes this goes into like class struggle. Like a lot of there's a I know Silvia Federici, she wrote a book on Caliban the Witch. It talks about like how a lot of the witch hunts were had to do with like the primitive accumulation of capital, enclosing upon commons, indigenous people, like all sorts of stuff. There's a lot to it. So yeah, it's not just this weird like they were ignorant or someone was like not normal and then kill them. That obviously it's not how it worked. Like you can't have a society that functions like that.
Yeah, it wasn't that innocent.
Yeah,
meaning that in a particular sense. Courtyards are popular in Asia for this reasons, apparently.
Playing outsides, and all their wealth only visible on the inside of their house. In cultures like this, directly bragging about success is viewed as extremely crass. One of the things...
Is it possible that courtyards are enjoyed in warmer environments because they're warm? Just throwing that
honestly,
out there.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's probably that. I know wait, hold on. Didn't Romans had like courtyards and shit like that. That's what villas were.
Yeah. We have backyards that are enclosed, and often you can't see into them.
Yeah, we have fucking fences. We have like fenced in areas.
It's not because we're hiding our riches, it's because we don't want people to look at us.
Like, Jesus Christ.
That's confused me across history is how stiflingly collectivist most of history's been. With the exception of the West for the last 1500 years, people in even very advanced society
Look at this backward culture and their tiny, narrow bridge. They can't possibly walk over that. Ridiculous.
Yeah, Jesus Christ.
like the Middle East, China, or India lived in clans with very little freedom. The top example of this is the caste system in India, which effectively ground the individual down with controlling every aspect of their lives between mate, occupation, and minor taboos they'd follow, which include how they live, dress, cook, allowing very little space for innovation.
You know who else had this? The Romans.
Also, I'm pretty sure. Well, this is another problem. It's like, again, this is bullshit because the caste system, there wasn't even just one caste system in history. It's not like they just had the caste system and that's it. As far as I understand it, I mean, only recently was it. I'm using this word very loosely, but it was. Well, no, I'll just say it was that restrictive, at least as far as I understand. I don't know too much about the history of the subcontinent of India, but just generally, just off the bat for anybody else, you can tell it's bullshit because I mean, obviously, no class system or system at all. Just it's like you have this for like 1,000 years and that's it. There's no like change or mode or whatever. Obviously, society's fucking changed all the goddamn time.
Now, if what he's arguing is that, like families that are established typically only intermarried with families that are established, then that's ubiquitous. Keep going.
India is especially high in controlling the individual, but other societies have manifested similar systems.
Things to keep in mind: these were collectivist societies in which following social rules was considered a moral good in itself. Rather, let me finish quickly. Rather, just being polite, like in the West. You can tell how quickly he's like just putting this down because there are just so many like basic grammatical errors.
And he doesn't put any fucking quality into this. He doesn't put any time into this. But I was gonna say, like, okay, this is the Orientalism, like we already have right here.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
This was an Eastern despotism. Just keep this in mind. That tells you all you need to know. Clan structures, arranged marriage. I hate arranged marriage. Had many reasons besides envy, but I'm choosing to highlight envy here. Okay. So hang on. All these institutions. Let's remember this for future. All these institutions had many reasons besides envy, but I am choosing to highlight envy here. Okay.
These extremely controlling collectivist societies are the norm since they mitigate envy and individual responsibility. If your arranged marriage sucks, that's your parents' problem, not yours, and you can keep telling yourself.
They are the norm because they mitigate envy, and then right here in text, had many reasons besides envy. But they're the norm because they mitigate envy.
This guy.
Most of human cultural history has been the attempt to shift blame away from the individual. When a person's life is controlled by countless little taboos and regulations, it means they can't succeed and so make everyone else feel bad. Another example of envy protection is the success of monarchies. The reason monarchies were so ubiquitous in the pre-modern world was that they were effective. Of all other forms of government, whether republics, theocracies, or military juntas, they all devolved into monarchies eventually.
Okay, so two things are going on here. One, monarchies became the norm because they were so effective. We just kept trying stuff over and over again. And then finally, monarchies just seemed to work. But then at the same time, everything devolves into monarchy. So monarchy is also a fail state. But it's super effective.
Makes sense.
There have been eras of history centuries long in which almost every state in the world was a monarchy. Monarchies were so effective since they were able to displace envy, and that once people agreed in a leader that was chosen in many ways randomly, people could feel equally unfair about them not being king. A major problem in societies without hereditary monarchies like the Roman Empire or early Anglo-Saxon England was civil wars as people were continually fighting on becoming the ruler. Thus, stable societies deviated towards being hereditary monarchies. A very common manifestation of this is hatred of merchants and commerce.
I can't help but notice that every single example of a hereditary monarchy that he's going to bring up here is going to be a society that has crumbled. or a regime that has crumbled.
Yeah. I guess like just the problem simply is like I again it's like so he's just not particular at all. Like okay, it's a monarchy, but like that's it. Just okay, king.
What does that mean? Who are we talking
Yeah, what
about?
is that? Where he's never getting into like the specifics about like well, the conceptions behind the monarchy or the quote unquote monarchy, right? Like how exactly does that society work? So like let's say if we call like if you go to like ancient Egypt and we go to Sumer, like both of
Mhm.
those I guess are monarchies, but they're obviously completely different in different ways. Sorry, they have completely different forms of organization. They have different
Yeah.
institutions and conceptions and complexes that make up their existence, and that has led to in history different outcomes for them. Right? Ancient Egypt didn't end up like Sumer. Sumer didn't end up like ancient Egypt.
Yeah, I'm wondering like what role is this term monarchy actually playing here? Because I think what's actually going on, he's he's bringing up the old bugbear of democratic societies being inherently more prone to being capricious, which is sort of true, but it's also true that monarchies are also capricious because it's still people making decisions, and like again, like it's the weirdest thing. Monarch like history can't be the result of people getting lucky or succeeding in noble endeavors. Whatever is old was there in the first place because it was the best. Or whatever is established is there because it's the best. Or whatever is critiqued by people on the left generally is there because it was the best and we're just bitter about it. Like there's no possibility that maybe monarchies formed or became entrenched because powerful actors found it to be in their interest to organize in that way, and in a like in the context of Europe, say there was no serious challenge to that form for a very long time. That's actually like largely what the Nomos of the Earth is about in the middle part. So
Yeah.
Merchants are
yeah,
one of the very few social classes that can have their successes be directly measured, and thus have the potential to get things really, really right and make unimaginable amounts of money. A free market is a representation of
Get
ultimate
things
reality.
really, really right. Also, what do you mean? Hold on, what does that even mean? Like it's the only why? Because of money? It's the only one that can be counted because of money? Okay, what about estates? Right? Like you can count like fucking like we have logs, I'm pretty sure, of oh this person owned this many lambs or not lambs, but like sheep or cows or whatever at this time. They would get this tribute each year. You can that's counted. It,
yeah.
it doesn't have to be like dollarunos, right?
Well, no, it's not because you see those people own that land because they were super effective at whatever the hell they were doing, and
They were
and
super effective, bro.
yeah, and those merchants are rich because they're super effective at whatever they're doing, and the one just sort of slowly morphed into the other one, I guess.
And what about cases when you can't? Like it's not money, right? Because it's also, I guess, like for merchants, a lot of times it's it's everything that they have with them, and this of course depends on the specific merchants. That itself is its own asset that isn't exactly um, easy to price, right? Which is why there's trading. Right? That's why like trading occurs and there's deals being made.
I think there's sort of a subconscious critique of the labor theory of value in here because what he's sort of implying is that there's something specifically real and validating about the fact that a merchant accrues a bunch of money from an exchange. Like that is like purely representative of their actual like ontological relationship with the world. They are succeeding. They are really successful because they are providing something that people really want, and we know that to a certainty. That's exactly how much they want it. How much they want it is exactly how much they pay for it. Something like that, or how much they need it, or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're getting people
Wait. Even if they're a person like Bill Gates who has literally ushered in a technological revolution that has increased GDP by trillions of dollars.
Oh, the Bill Gates revolution? Yeah, I know about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Things that they really want or need in the real world, and accruing benefit from it rather than purely pleasing emotions and whims. This means that the potential for gain if you get things right is extraordinary. The financial benefits accrued to the successful in capitalism has been unimaginably painful to people's senses of envy. This has been solved in some societies by demonizing hard work, whether in Haiti as shown before, or with crushing the merchant classes, which has been the norm across history. This norm was for the ruling classes to regulate merchants into weakness or to create monopolies in order to weaken the free market. In the Roman Empire, this process of killing the merchant classes was done by the army.
Does he understand that the French Revolution, like the thing that gave us the concept of a left wing, was primarily a merchant revolution? Like,
Yeah.
that's what the Third Estate was. They were people who got their money from selling things.
Hold on. Wait, with Romans? Wait, did they kill? I actually don't know much about this. Did they kill fucking merchants? Wait, what?
I don't know. I'm into Greece. My Rome isn't
I've
good.
ever heard about that.
I don't think so. I mean, like there were like a lot of reforms in Greek cities, I know, and I'm sure similar things happened in Rome, where they were trying to keep.
This can't. Hold on. This can't be like. Okay, even if like they did kill merchants, it can't be like they were literally going to war with the merchant class because obviously there was fucking merchants, right? There's fucking trade.
Well,
Like,
moreover, they relied on merchants to fund their fleets. Like, you can't have dedicated militaries when
so-
you just have like a draft of your citizens. It doesn't work that way.
all of these societies traded. That like,
Yeah.
what the hell was the Silk Road? Like, you need the merchant class. So obviously they're not just like genociding. You know, oh, we don't like merchants. I mean, that's not really genocide because
Also, hang on,
yeah.
wait a sec. Islam. Muhammad was a merchant.
Oh yeah, I forgot about why he brought up Rome. So I was focusing on Rome. But yeah, that's like I don't know.
China,
So weird.
merchants all over. Actually, like China relied on merchants. It's a massive country. Well, I mean, back then it wasn't even really a single country, but like, anyways, it's just every stop is a black hole. Like you can
Yeah,
just
it's just-
you can just go without end.
But again, it's just like it's one of those things where you obviously know it can't be true because, and let's say for example, everyone does the whole meme where it's like, oh, the Inca were socialists. They weren't exactly socialists, but they had like I guess you could say a more centralized economy, right?
Well, what they
had a palace economy, but they nonetheless
Yeah.
they had merchants. They had a whole class of merchants, and they themselves also traded with, groups outside of them. Or,
well what
yeah,
what they didn't have were merchants with an extraordinary amount of power over like arable land or things like that, who sort of like had a monopoly over trade, like even like that the state or such as it was had to like go through. Like you didn't have an equivalent to the East India Trading Company, and moreover, they didn't have this conception of good policy, quote unquote, is the result of actors operating in their own self-interest in sort of like a gamified conception of like, I guess, the political field of play, which is just start a business and get rich somehow or something like that. Oh, thank you very much, Jarrett. That's very kind of you for the $20. I'm glad I found your channel Sunday. I always enjoy the insight you give on streams, even if I disagree with you on the overall quality of voice acting in the first Amnesia game. You are incorrect. The first Amnesia game is excellent voice acting, and I will fight you to the death on that. And I will kick you if you disagree with me, Bunnytooth, immediately and without.
damn.
Yeah,
I haven't played that, so I don't know.
I may advocate for democracy, but I am a tyrant.
In the Islamic and Indian world, it was a combination of the priest and warrior classes, and in China, it was a centralized bureaucratic state. In the Middle Ages, the Middle East was the richest place in the world, but over the late...
I don't like this characterization of a priest and warrior class. There were no priests. I mean, there were warrior, like there were dedicated warriors, but they weren't really a class in most cases. In the case of Rome, like, and furthermore, like the distinction between priest and warrior, like, what is he talking about? Priest can mean, like every.
I think it's kind of obvious. Sunday. I don't know why you don't understand this. Priests have access to healing spells. They're strength and wisdom based.
No.
While warriors, they use strength or dexterity.
Well, warriors have to engage in melee combat, whereas priests can't engage in melee combat, but they have the power to convert enemy warriors.
Okay. There,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
They have to say like, whoa.
Late Middle Ages, arbitrary business regulations transformed it into one of the poorest. China nearly had an industrial revolution in the 11th century when they were producing more total steel than early 19th century Britain, but didn't due to government overregulation that made it uneconomical to run those foundries.
Okay, that's so bullshit. Yes, because industrialization is when you have lots of steel. That's industrialization, folks.
Yeah, it's not like a specific.
Source. I would love to hear about this. Give me this story. Where's the source? Does he have anything in the description?
No, of course not. Look, there's nothing here. There's an ad. Whoa, he doxed himself. He's got a name here, Rudyard Lynch. It's a cool name.
That's an interesting name.
Rudyard William Lynch. I actually kind of like that. It's wasted on this, but I like it.
Oh, I get it. No, here's where the source. It's Magellan TV. I get it now.
I wonder. I mean, he's been doing this before he was getting the ads, obviously, but I kind of wonder, like, if we looked at Magellan TV, would it just be this?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe like, that could be a stream in itself Sunday. You can just get like a free thing or whatever, and just, check it out.
I'm just gonna look at the comments quickly. Jeff Bezos, 15,000 years ago, kills a mammoth and shares it only with prime tribesmen.
That's fucking awesome.
I mean, shares it only with prime tribesmen, but only about a week after, even though he said 2 days. Very shaky points towards the end. Sun God will leave us if we don't... Sorry. Sun God will leave us if we don't bring good harvest. Cave Altist. Maybe the sun is just a natural process and there's actually no supernatural force that is at work here. Kill Big Word Man. Anyways.
Kill Big Word Man.
Yeah.
The USSR. Oh, there's something about the USSR.
I love this map, though.
It's very beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
The fact that this sort of thing made everyone involved poorer doesn't matter to envy. A perfect example of this sort of thing has been the treatment of middlemen and merchant minorities like the Chinese in Southeast Asia, the Indians in East Africa, and the Jews in Europe and the Middle East, all of which who made their total societies far wealthier. These groups normally came into the regions with nothing except the clothes on their back, but due to human capital or elements in their culture that made them more competitive against the native population, like hard work...
Nothing but the clothes on their back. What?
I guess
nothing but the clothes on their back.
I guess they
What
were,
do you mean?
I guess they were clothes merchants.
You guys have like I don't know, like even again, it's like even with this, like even with the Jews, right? They have families. They have a history, right? And those like if you want to put it in like modern day terms, assets, knowledge, all of that passes down. It's not just the clothes on your backs. There is nobody who's just walking with the clothes on their back, unless like I don't know, they're just like a modern day homeless person or something.
Well, yeah, because like they wouldn't
like, no
be
back, and they have like no family whatsoever.
If you have nothing but the clothes on your back, you can't migrate. You will die. Like this isn't like yeah.
You have to rely on something.
Knowledge of the market or developed skill sets allowed them to become wealthier than the local community. However, they've continually faced discrimination time and time again due to envy. Again, stuff like evicting the Jews from Spain or the Indians from Uganda or the economic repressions against the Chinese in Malaysia and Indonesia have made everyone involved poorer, but that doesn't matter to envy. Aristocracies and the ruling classes across history, even when...
That's not true. I think in the case of Spain that was religious bigotry. I don't think it was envy about wealth and whatnot. I think also Jewish families, and I could be wrong on this. I'm forgetting exactly. I think I got it from this book here actually, which I can't really vet 100%, but Lost Enlightenment by what's his name? S. Frederick Starr, which was interesting but very broad, so I'm a little bit skeptical of it sometimes. I think it was something to do with the fact that in Al-Andalus they had very well integrated, or a lot of them had been very successful and integrated with the like, you know, the businesses of Muslims before the Reconquista. So I wonder if a lot of that was, again, connected to their hostility towards Islam, as well as like the general like conception of like the Jews being responsible for the execution of Christ and whatnot, things like that.
When they've ruled completely incompetently, have normally been able to shift the blame to the merchant classes and use them as a scapegoat to the population. This is because the aristocracies have normally been inaccessible to the general population, and so you aren't judged negatively for not being able to become an aristocrat, since no one can. However, for the merchant classes, where generally everyone can become a wealthy shoe salesman, there's a greater degree of envy and feeling that you didn't measure up. My historic speciality is the Middle Ages, and I always find it depressing that it's an era of history that people treat like it's some Dark Age backwater, but in reality it's some...
Actually, that last point was wrong. There were quite a few societies in which you could actually buy your way into the nobility, and the sort of old blood nobility would have been like very exclusive from you. And so you would have had envy between like these new nobles and like the traditional families.
Also, I mean, one thing he just said, like, he doesn't treat it like, or he's getting on people like who, he's getting on the idea that it's like, that the Middle Ages were like some dark backwater, but that's like literally what he was just doing with the whole witch thing, was he not? But
yeah, but I don't think he was thinking of Europeans in that context, though. He's talking, because he's...
Oh yeah, maybe you're right, yeah. Forgot
well,
about that.
Here's the thing. So, when we think of, like, primitive versus, like, modern communities, we tend to think of in terms of, like, a technological development. So we think of, like, our own history, like how, like, what technological moves had to be made to get to present forms of society, like the modern state in North America, something like that. What he's looking at is, he thinks that groups that organize along lines that he would characterize as tribal today, or have an ethnicity that he associates with tribal society, are sort of inherently living in an earlier time from us, so they haven't gotten here yet. So...
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
It's like sort of like a societal evolution.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the very most important innovations that allowed the modern world to develop. There were a series of shifts that took place in Europe in the early Middle Ages that all clumped together and called the Western Revolution, which largely created the cultural bases that modern Westerners take for granted. This revolution allowed for controls and envy that created the conditions for the modern, technologically developed world to develop. The first part of which was the Catholic Church banned cousin marriage, which meant that clans couldn't hold together. Beforehand, you were married off to your third cousin to keep your clan intact, but when that was no longer possible, people started to live in nuclear families and started being judged as individuals rather...
What is this? Collectivist versus individualist. What are these numbers? So, if you're dark purple, you're 77 to 91 individualist. And if you're collectivist, you're white, apparently. So...
Oh, really? Yeah, I felt like white was pretty proper for collectivists.
Like, I can understand there being like a palette here. Besides, like, ignoring the fact there's no date, so I have no idea what this is talking about. And the fact that he has color-coded every single place on Earth, like we just have perfect data on this, and it directly corresponds to, national borders today. Because, like this line between the United States and Canada, that was like a sacred border, that the Mohawk protected as a part of their religion before European contact, of course. Everybody knows this. What are these numbers? What does it mean to be 42 to 49 collectivist?
So why does it stop at 91?
I don't... Oh, I see, because it's like... Oh, I see, it's a percentage. Okay. So... So...
91% fucking individualist?
So,
how does that work?
So North America was... between 66 and 78% individualist some time ago. And I guess like
we seem pretty individualist as a society. As an American, As which I don't think I know like most of your audience aren't American. They wouldn't understand the what's going on in my country. But
Disturbingly, I
as an
think
American, I'll definitely tell you that America is a very individualist place. It's probably
dis-
the most individualist place of all time. Um, Nationalism, we don't know her. Never heard
disturbingly,
of it.
I think my entire audience is American. Every time I look at the analytics, I don't have anybody from anywhere else, with like one or two people from the UK.
rather than members of collectives. Another large factor was that Europe never developed large empires like Asia did, meaning that there were lots of political competition and conflict in the Catholic Church and local state authorities,
What does
which
that
created
mean? Large empires. What?
Well,
Like
it does
specifics.
it doesn't mean the Roman Empire for one. It doesn't mean the Holy Roman Empire. It can't mean any of the large things that we now call states, because those, of course, are like magically different from empires. Um, I I don't know.
I love in the corner, in the right corner, it just says Filipinos.
I love below the Filipinos. It says jungle tribes.
What the fuck? Actually, I'm pretty sure. Wait, wasn't the Philippines called like Baratawan? I think that was the name of it. I think I saw that in a documentary once. That's not important. Let's continue.
the separation of church and state. This all resulted in lots of social competition.
Wait a sec. Hang on. I need to hear that again.
That Europe never developed large empires like Asia did, meaning that there were lots of political competition and conflict in the Catholic Church and local state authorities, which created the separation of church and state. This all resulted in lots of social competition between different groups like the merchants, nobility, monarchy, etc. Freedom should be viewed kind of like a market system, in which we've historically had about as much freedom as we've been able to claw from our governments.
The distinction between church and state was not. That's first of all, like, it's super recent, so it doesn't make sense to compare these things. And secondly,
What the fuck is this? Hold on. Weapons, armed to the teeth,
freedom and tyranny are market system.
pacified and unarmed. They don't got shit in India, guys. They don't got weapons. No, nothing.
You know, despite the
Wait,
fact that
are
all
they
of their
saying Japan more free? Is Japan more free than the Congo? Wait, hold on. Who's more free here? I'm so lost at this fucking thing. What is this?
I don't know. India has a pacified and unarmed population. Like, he knows that India, like, their classical literature is like all about war, right?
What the fuck? A country with no sense of identity at all. The state cannot function, which means that crime, corruption, and petty warlords run rampant. I can't read that last part.
Enslaving and murdering.
Oh, it's a
Yeah. Well, like there's sort of like a methodological statism going on here, where he's characterizing communities as if they were directly identified with the borders that are applied in modernity by the international system of states, which they're not. Obviously, the Congo isn't just a country in civil war; it's also a bunch of different communities that are competing for power and resources. Egypt is just a flat desert in which the entire population is clustered within a few miles of a central river. This resulted in millennia of stifling oppression of the population by both native and foreign rulers. I mean, not particularly. I think like the Persians were relatively okay. I mean, they brutalized the old nobility, of course, but okay. America armed to the teeth with citizen armies and militias, which has meant no tyrannies, dictatorships, and barely even any revolts either. Yeah, post-American Revolution, sure. But, like, the Native Americans didn't have militias. They had...
I never heard of tyranny. We've never heard of that. Never heard of it at all. Dictatorship? No, nothing. Never had that in our entire existence.
I don't know. I guess if you're genocided, it doesn't count anymore. Scotland. Why Scotland? Mountainous, jagged islands and peninsulas. The result is millennia of history with barely any centralized government and an extremely libertarian culture. Okay.
The Scottish Libertarian?
Yeah, I don't know. Thank you, Freckle.
I don't know.
You sent me a gift in Discord. Interesting. if that's an inappropriate photograph, I'm not going to take your $5 into consideration when I block you, though.
Whether in the form of nasty geographies, armed populations, or strong societies capable of resisting tyranny. In Europe, the conditions of competition, on both the social and political level, meant that people had more choice than ever before. If you didn't like your family, you could move to a city. If you didn't like your lord, you could work for another one for better terms. Europe went through a series of social shifts that shifted it towards individuality. One's moral worth was based upon their personal relationship with God. In places like England and northern France, arranged marriages for normal people went away in the 11th century. While centralized empires crushed parliaments around most of the world, they flourished in almost every country in medieval Europe. Capitalism was able to thrive since Europe's merchants started out as pirates independent from the government, and so were negotiated into the government system rather than merely being subsidiaries to it.
Is that true? Did merchants in Europe originate as pirates?
What? I've never heard of this in my entire life. Wait. But also, I mean, again, this is such a general, like, point. Think about that, like, sentence. Merchants were pirates to Europe. What? There wasn't, like, an EU or something that made them all, like, pirates. Like, why? How about Venice, right? Like, are you saying that France and, in England, they didn't have any merchants? They just, no merchants there.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know either.
Like, were they pirates, or were they, like, these aren't the same thing. Pirates aren't merchants. Pirates typically accost merchants. That's kind of what they're known for. Yeah.
They were just like, we have stuff, let us in. And
Yar.
the Europeans were like, yeah, we'll do that. Welcome aboard.
Another important factor is the West is part of the 12% of societies that have been monogamous across history. Most societies across history are polygamous, and studies have found polygamy is a great causer of political violence. As the more young women there are than men who are married off to rich men, that means there are more single young men who will cause crimes and violence until their genetic fate is stable. An effect of having monogamy in the West was that it created more gender equality, since it created more negotiating power for upper-class women, since they had a monopoly on reproduction. I think a really telling example of this shift was that in the late Middle Ages, European artists started to sign their...
Wait a second, hang on. Sorry.
Since they had a monopoly on and violence until their genetic fate is stable. An effect of having monogamy in the West was that it created more gender equality, since it created more negotiating power for upper-class women, since they had a monopoly on reproduction.
That's not true. I mean, first of all, yeah. So a society in which women are, yeah, no, that's just. I don't even know where to start. Like, let's go back to ancient Athens, because I know that one really well. They also had monogamy there, but that didn't mean that the woman was free because they had a monopoly. They didn't have a monopoly over reproductive power. They were the reproductive power of the men who practically owned them for the longest time. And they could be discarded if they failed to do so. It's not like, I'm the one who can reproduce, therefore you have to do what I say. No, if you were noble, you married primarily for money, or for establishing family connections, or for whatever. Like,
yeah. Also, he's done this a lot, where he like characterizes polygamy as always just being this extremely negative and what is it called? It's like backwards thing, and it's just like completely inefficient. And now I'm not saying like I'm a big fan of polygamy. Well, I'm not really a marriage fan. I'm not a marriage enjoyer. But there is, I remember reading in Sexuality in Medieval Europe by Ruth Mazo Karas, which if he does actually learn, if he's actually like in medieval studies, he probably has read this book. It talks about how something that's very useful with polygamy is that basically there are particularly there's more options for well, obviously for the father with the women, but also for the women themselves, because if everyone only can marry, so if every like man can only marry one woman, then you're going to have like, not a bottleneck, what is it, basically you have like it's a much more limited pool. But if you have it to where there are some men that can marry more women because they're wealthy enough to have those women, then obviously they have options to, go and marry them.
Mm-hmm.
While in what they did in Europe, generally, was not, of course, in all cases, but the other option was basically they would become a nun. That's all you can do if you can't find anyone to marry if you're a woman. And this changed, of course. Like there was things like the Beguines, which was like its own little movement. But yeah,
Right, and in addition to that, like if you marry into a polygamous family, at least then the husband has to provide for you in some way. Whereas in like a strict legal monogamous system, like they can absolutely sleep with other people. It's just they don't get any benefit from it, or if they do, it's like, that you get like not that there aren't like prostitutes in and the exploitation of sex workers in polygamous societies, but I don't know. I shouldn't talk out of my ass about this. This is not my area at all, but I just I know intuitively that that's wrong from what I've read.
just to put it very simply, it's obviously a lot more complicated than than how he's making it out.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wait, Western art over time. Okay, so we got the Mona Lisa. We have, I can't recognize that. That's kind of pretty, whatever that is. I should know who that is, but I don't. Salvador Dali. Do you know what this is? This 21st century thing? That looks like it was drawn with crayon.
I have no idea.
Okay. It probably looks better when it's zoomed in. I think he hates this one.
I think a really telling example of this shift was that in the late Middle Ages, European artists started to sign their paintings to show pride in their work. This was opposed to Asia, where one was meant to make the perfect version of a pre-existing artistic trend, and the artists themselves were unimportant and unknown.
So where did the art come from, I wonder?
However, this sign of individuality meant European artists were incentivized to try new things in order to get more fame for their name. This is why the West went through such a massive artistic evolution after
Asian art over time.
Okay, I hate this. So, 12th century, I think I'm getting that right. 12th century, you absolutely have original, ambitious artists creating stuff. One famous piece in particular is the Shahnameh by Abulqasim Ferdowsi. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I've actually never checked to see if I'm pronouncing that right, and I probably should sometime. But this is really, really good. It's the best way I can describe it is sort of like if you combined Herodotus with like King Arthur legends or whatnot, but it's very good. And there's a lot of influence on a lot of modern like video games and whatnot from that. Like that game, what was it called? Like the Darkness, that one where you have like the serpents coming out of your shoulders. That's based.
Oh
off...
yeah, Darkness. I think it's just simply called Darkness.
Darkness, yeah. That's based off of a. Actually, let me pull it up here quickly. That's based off of a villain from the second story from the Shahnameh. That's the Demon King Zahak. I think there's an illustration here. Yeah, here we are. So that, let's see if I can get that visible. Anyways, let's keep going.
Oh, just one quick thing, because I was looking in the comments.
Yeah.
On the whole polygamous thing. Again, I'm not saying like, polygamy's better or something like that. I'm not like, I don't really have a dog in that fight. But I'm just saying that it's obviously like way more complicated, and there were like benefits, and or for the interests, or specifically for the powers that be, to have polygamy, and not just in like I get to have a bunch of women, kind of
Right.
sense. It has like a certain, function within society. So
Even what
we
if
shouldn't
I'll
be saying like monogamy is like just flat good and polygamy just flat bad or inefficient or something like that.
Well, especially when he's talking about benefits that didn't accrue to the women that he's talking about in particular in their time. And secondly, that didn't accrue to them because of monogamy. Like there were a whole host of things that took place that were
Also,
not
just simply, I mean, at the end of the day, they're both like heavily patriarchal societies. So,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter. Like, it's not like, oh, well, if they're polygamous, they treat them more like property. Like, no, what? what was like the whole pater familias, system.
Yeah.
Like with Rome, right? They treated their wives as basically slaves.
Oh, like the fathers had absolute control over the life and death of their family members. That
It's
was also the
monogamous.
case. Yeah,
So,
that was also the case in early Athens too.
The Renaissance, well, Asian civilization stayed largely the same. The structure of Christianity also allowed a good deal of controlling envy in that it believed in objective truth that existed in the real world above what was written in texts by pre-existing social superiors.
Hang on. This is opposed to the other main civilizations which believed that ancient teachings, whether the Quran, Confucian texts, Vedas, or Platonic writings, were superior to evidence from the outside world. I don't know what that means, and that they already had accurate views of the world that didn't need input. What? Who believed... Okay, so I don't know what this is talking about. So the Greeks apparently thought that Platonic writings didn't need input, they just understood the world. Medieval Catholic... That's why philosophy ended in Greece. Medieval Catholicism came to the conclusion that since God made the world to figure out how the world works would allow one to understand God's plan, which led to Western science.
Yeah, I think I've actually heard. I think there's actually a book that it believes it, or not. Okay, this may be a complete butchering of it. Maybe there is truth to it, but I've heard something like this. I think there's a specific book that gets into this. It basically argues that, like, other like systems or whatever the hell of thought, like religions or whatever, didn't really allow for like what is necessary for like a current conception of science. Only like Christianity did.
Yeah, hey, pop quiz. What religion was the guy who invented algebra?
Was he like some pagan or something?
He was
no, wait.
He was Muslim.
Oh, yeah.
Algebra.
Oh, he was Muslim.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What religion was the guy who came up with the Pythagorean theorem?
Oh, that was Pythagoras.
He was Christian. He was Christian because he did science.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, no, I thought he believed in like the number religion. That was his whole thing. The number religion.
Right, of course, the number religion. I forgot. Okay.
The number cult.
The number cult. The esoteric order of, I don't know, the hypotenuse or something.
Similarly, its main insistence was upon a loving God which would forgive mistakes. The idea of heaven also created the afterlife, which people could hold on to if their current lives sucked. It meant that if you were an economic failure but a good person, good things would still come to you. These three things allowed control of human emotions like envy to a greater degree, since it held an abstract that individuals could hold onto beyond their community's whims. This Western revolution allowed the Western world to have the scientific and technological revolutions.
It's because of Christianity that we moved from having a typewriter to a laptop.
Okay, he could have wrote that better. Okay, he just said revolution. All I heard was like revolution, revolution, revolution. I'm sorry. It's just the way he wrote that like line was bad.
Are you impugning Widdefeltist's writing capabilities?
Yeah. Yes, I am. Yes, I am, and I'll proudly do so.
Let's hear that again.
Yeah.
Held an abstract that individuals could hold onto beyond their community's whims. This Western revolution allowed the Western world to have the scientific and technological revolutions. Other civilizations were able to make massive technological advances, like China's invention of gunpowder, the printing press, paper, and compass, but never used them.
They never used them. You're full of tricks, wizard, but you never once used your greatest weapon. Paper.
They never used it. They were
No.
like, yeah, this shit. Oh, we won't use it. Fuck it.
They only... These are not honorable weapons, Bunny Tooth.
Yeah, I can tell. Jesus Christ.
Or had developed market economies which were regulated out of existence. The West, since it suppressed envy,
What
was
is
able to
that?
have
Who said this? Regulated out of existence. Give me the sauce, bro. I really want to hear about this. I really want to read about this. Like, what is this?
The hardest thing about this is, like, just for its own self-preservation, my brain shuts off and I can't process what he's saying. And it just kind of goes, okay, sure. And I'm just waiting for the bad thing.
Okay, yeah, let's try to make it through this, because like I want to get to the part where he talks about communists, because he has to talk about communism. He has to.
He has to.
massive successes.
It's coming, don't worry. Oh, here we go.
The The West was able to suppress envy for the longest time, and with it came the massive technological, artistic, and social gains that went to that civilization. But, without noticing, the underlying structures that held down envy were weakening, thus provoking tens of millions.
Oh, who am I talking to? I'm talking to Mr. Medicare. He's cured.
Yeah.
Say hi, Jim.
Yeah, I'm cured. Hello.
Of deaths in the
I'm
20th
Mr.
century, driven almost entirely off envy. The decline in traditional religions precipitated the rise in envy. It's interesting to see the word envy as a percentage of total words used precipitously decline from the 19th to 20th centuries. To chalk something up to envy was something acceptable in discourse.
I guess he used Google to aggregate this. You know, he just looked at like how many times the word envy was typed into search engines in 1600.
Yeah, what the fuck is this dude?
Century ago, but now such things would be called victim blaming. You can clearly see that with the decline of Christianity in the Western world, socialism has risen. The countries that have remained the most Christian, like the United States and Poland, have largely remained the most capitalist, while the secular have become more socialist. The thing is that although European socialism has allowed a comfortable standard of living for the people with work, it's overall made Europe a lot poorer. In that Europe is the main part of the world that's seen active economic decline, with Europe going from 38% of the world's economy to 24% since the 1960s.
Like, he knows that that's not because of decline, right? That's because of other countries getting, like producing more and engaging more in international trade.
Which is decline, Sunday. Okay?
Well,
Stop mixing it up. It's decline.
Well, it's decline in dominance, but it's not like
the white people are losing. I'm woke, Mr. Medicare.
Well, that you can't be Mr. Medicare anymore because that's a mispronunciation of mediocre. So you are Mr. Exceptional.
What? Okay. Let's just continue.
Much of Europe has seen double-digit unemployment, and Europe also sent its creative and entrepreneurial class to the U.S.
Share of labor force aged 15 to 74 years by nuts. What does that mean? What
I don't know, I guess it's NUTS? I don't know what that is.
Either.
Silicon Valley was heavily built off European expats, for example. It seems like the European post-World War II compromise has largely been that they'd prefer to have a comfortable standard of living for most and regulate the system so much that those that want to push beyond and build go to America or the City of London.
I don't fully blame Europeans for this decision. By objective measurements, the best off and most pleasant societies in the world are in Northern Europe by countless measurements, like work-life, balance, environment, health, lack of corruption or crime, and the like. However, this has been bought at the price of basically trading away Europe's economic and demographic... Whoa! Demographic future? What does that refer to?
Uh-oh.
As an American... I'm sure he's just talking about, like people aging. As an American today, I can enjoy this amazing European system. Future generations of Europeans will not.
This is a system that makes most of Europe weaker in real time. Similarly, studies found that lots of the post-World War II tax rates in the wealthy, like the 90% one in the US and the 95% in Britain and Sweden, had no economic justification. Although high taxes on the wealthy make a lot of sense under certain circumstances, when you're getting to that level, the economic validity makes no more sense, and the only possible one is envy. An important thing to...
Sorry, hang on. I need to listen to that again. I'm so sorry.
You're
the
all good,
wealthy,
dude.
like the 90% one in the US and the 95% in Britain and Sweden, had no economic justification. Although high taxes on the wealthy make a lot of sense under certain circumstances, when you're getting to that level, the economic validity makes no more sense, and the only possible one is envy. An important thing to understand is that intellectuals as a group are inherently envious. This is since they're normally very smart, but often lack the drive, grit, or courage to become wealthy or powerful. But since they're smart, they think they could do those things better than the people who get them. They get really angry when people who they view as intellectually inferior, like businessmen or politicians, get wealthy and powerful while they don't. An example of this inside academia is that popular writers or people who write for the public are looked down upon as low class. But in reality, popular writers serve a very valuable role of bringing these teachings out of the obscure halls of academia into the real world. However, a lot of this probably comes from envy in that these writers are wealthier and more famous than professors.
This is a little words coming into my brain here, and it's ressentiment. He is extremely bitter that actual academics think his work is garbage. And so he's like, so the reason why academics hate popular works is not because they're popular and they make money. The reason why academics generally have a big problem with popular works is that what's actually happened is really bad scholars with no future have decided to sidestep the peer review process and sell the material under like highly editorialized titles and like highly simplified, like just simplified to the point of being a misconstrual of what they're depicting, to an audience that has no capacity to judge between well-researched and poorly researched work. That's it.
Yeah, but funny enough, right, you see up there, there's 1491 by Charles C. Mann, which I think is a pretty good book.
I think it's okay considering that there's like a dearth of stuff doing what he's doing. He's largely hated by people who are really triggered for whatever reason by like indigenous resurgence and whatnot. So like, oh, they didn't have complex societies. We don't know what these mounds actually were.
Yeah,
stuff
exactly.
like that. Yeah.
Funny enough, he's not even a historian or whatever.
No, he's a
just, like,
journalist.
yeah, he's like a scientific journalist. Or
Yeah.
whatever.
I mean, like, they're good for what they are. Like, I'm not like to be clear, like I'm not dunking on like popular history. Like even bad stuff can sometimes be a really good like general introduction to just what's there, sort of, and it gives you like if you're correcting your understanding over time, that's fine. But if you're just like reading this and I've read about America now, like that's when it's not good. But Charles C. Mann is fine. I actually have 1491.
Yeah, 1491 is when he talks about pre-Columbian,
Yeah.
and that's post-Columbian.
He's got like 4 of them now.
And this is basically the only way communism makes
Here it
sense.
is.
For labor unions, I get communism, since it's abstractly just an extension of their power.
Yes,
but for
the
intellectuals,
communist regimes.
communism is a way that they can believe they can get total power over society and use their planning abilities to fix the world while removing all the people like businessmen and politicians.
Castro hung it.
What is this?
You go ahead.
In reality, labor unions and intellectuals always lose out when communist governments seize power, with the party preventing strikes and tightly controlling intellectual thought. The people who normally seize power or are near are never. Wait, what?
Never do wells. Ne'er do wells.
Oh,
Yeah.
ne'er do wells. Okay, I've never seen that before. Stalin was a bank robber. Castro hung out at bars without a steady job. Okay. Mao also had trouble holding a job and begged for a bit. Wait, what the fuck is this? Also, I'm pretty sure Stalin, when he bank robbed, that was for that was
part. I mean, like it was a bank robbery, but it was he wasn't like just down in his luck, put on a sock and like held up a bank teller.
No, that was like praxis, bro.
This was like the equivalent is like if Al Qaeda like breaks into a weapons depot or something. I don't know. Like that was with the aim of attaining power. Like he wasn't just like.
Sure. Also, like, well, with the Stalin, his father was like a priest, I think. But Castro and Mao, I'm pretty sure their fathers were what is it called? They were landowners. They were like small landowners or something like that.
Well, this one bugs me. Look, like, and here's the thing: like, you don't need to take any particular normative stance vis-a-vis any of these people to like talk about them objectively. Like, Castro hung out at bars without a steady job. What does that mean? Does it mean he couldn't hold a job, or does it mean that he'd worked different jobs and had a tendency to hang out at bars, which, by the way, I conjecture, are where you would find occasion to, talk to people in a political capacity, right? Mao also had trouble holding a job and begged for a bit. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think Mao grew up in poverty either.
No, he didn't. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Castro and Mao did not. Like Lenin, I mean, well, I don't know about his, like, when he was raised, but he was a lawyer. So none of these, like, people, they weren't, like, down on their luck, like they weren't, like, lumpen or something, right? These people, they had, not to say that means like they're any better because of it. And also just something to bring up here, like it's basically like, so what? Stalin didn't just himself was like, okay, I'll shoot these people myself and I'll start the revolution. Obviously fucking not. There's plenty of people from very different walks of life that had an interest in this revolution. That's just generally how revolutions go, obviously. Some of them were, lawyers and generals. Others were like small peasants and,
Actually,
lumpen.
I'm glad you bring that up. Every single person here, with maybe the exception of Castro, because I don't know him as well, these were intellectuals who wrote works of theory that are still read today.
Yeah. Or if you want to, then if you don't want to, we can take Castro out and put in Tay.
Well, I'm not even sure I want to take Castro out. Like, did Castro not write? I think he might have.
He wasn't. He did write some stuff, of course, but he wasn't really that theoretical.
Right.
As far as I've heard, he wasn't even a committed like Marxist-Leninist, at least from the beginning. He was like sort of a economic. He basically was just like, I'm against imperialism. I just want this shit to be for Cuba, and that's kind of it.
Did Che write? What did Che write?
Che, yeah, he wrote on guerrilla warfare. I know that for sure.
Okay.
Which gets into his whole thing with guerrilla warfare and how he did it.
Right. Yeah.
So he also writes some other stuff about like the geopolitics, and he was a Marxist. He was a Marxist.
Communism as it exists today doesn't make sense with any other prism.
If he was a Marxist, then why is he sold on T-shirts?
That's a good fucking question. Oops, I dropped my communist symbol.
Except envy. It's been routinely shown to make people poorer and has failed at every single attempt on every continent and every civilization.
Excepting the fact that it industrialized all those nations and the ones.
What is communist leaning? What does this mean?
It means they're slimy pinkos, I guess.
Communist leaning.
I don't know
what?
I don't know what that means.
What does this mean?
I don't know. I don't know what communist
Okay.
leaning means. I don't know.
If we were using the scientific method for the
Wait a minute. Wait. What is he referring to here? Are black countries just excluded, or what is communist by conquest?
No, communist by conquest is the Eastern Bloc. See the pink?
Oh, I see. It's color coded. Okay, sorry. I was seeing it next to
North Korea. Well, hold on. North Korea, I'm pretty... Okay, I don't... Okay, this is... What the fuck is this?
I don't know.
But I love how this is like where it's really just funny. I knew like it was going to get to communism. I think it's kind of obvious for everyone that's going to get to communism, but he looks at this and he's like, what the fuck is going on here? Why are all these countries doing this shit I don't like? And he's like, well, it has to be envy, rather than thinking about the real fucking political economic relations that are occurring at this time, right?
Yeah.
It's not just like how it just doesn't make any sense. And this is why people were getting on
or for that matter, like where do these lines come from? Like,
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Incurred, communism has clearly been a failed experiment. However, the fact that the intellectual world continues to be overwhelmingly leftist suggests there's ulterior motives. Just look at the Soviet Union in the 1920s, which briefly allowed private farming and business, and then had a large economic upswing and plenty of food, but then crushed that local initiative for communal work which would control envy, thus driving the country into poverty, recession, and famine.
A key component of this is power in that communal work is easier for foreigners to control. How would communal work be easier for foreigners to control? I would think that's the opposite.
Foreigners?
Like they
Foreigners?
No, but they specifically, like, communal work was like they isolated to where you could work. You had to have like a ticket in order to sell your produce at like a local place, like in China, for example. Or something like that. Like you couldn't actually work outside of your like canton or whatever it was called. Communal work isn't easier for foreigners to control. Communal work would be extremely hard for foreigners to control because communal definitionally means local.
Yeah, especially if you have well, I know with the whole Soviet system, you had workers like voting, and obviously like just for any like system where you're voting, that necessitates to basically influence votes. You need connections, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't have the connections, if you're kind of coming in, you're a foreigner. Well, obviously, yeah, you're gonna have. It's not gonna be as good for you.
Yeah. Let's keep going.
This meant that the envy was more important to them than helping the poor. Similarly, almost every communist regime ever resulted in an immediate absolute decline in the standard of living for decades afterwards. When we see how communist regimes have acted across history, the only motivator that makes sense is envy. Look at the purging of the kulaks in the Soviet Union, or the more prosperous peasants. People who normally only had slightly larger homes and a few more cows than their neighbors. However, all the Russian peasants were equally poor only a few decades before, and so if you hadn't risen up in the 1920s, it was largely your fault as an individual.
Okay. Okay, was that because of envy, or was that because they were being exploited and those were like the local touchstone for that exploitation?
I guess it's just envy, dude.
I guess.
Drove envy through the roof. Killing the kulaks, or literally the hardest working and most productive people, created massive famines and economic wastage. The Soviets would rather starve than deal with their
I
own
don't know about
personal
it was
senses
the.
of
I don't know if it was the kulaks being. I don't even in the common narrative. I don't think it was the kulaks being killed that led to famine.
No.
Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure like no one even says. I know that of course, obviously there's a debate on it, but no one ever says in the debate because the kulaks were killed, then famine occurred.
Yeah, even in the case of the Great Leap Forward too, that's typically attributed to like a combination of mismanagement and sycophancy among like the people in charge of administrating goods. I don't know.
envy.
Yeah.
My mind's
You can look
melting.
At similar
I'm having
conditions in China, where the landlord class, as a rule, wasn't that rich, and the country as a whole didn't have a lot of inequality, but the landlords were brutally humiliated, killed, and dejected. And just like in Russia, the process of land centralization resulted in millions of deaths and killing what was already a functioning agricultural system, causing one of the worst atrocities in history with over 30 million deaths. On an international basis, we see this with third world leftism, in that third world countries would routinely expel foreign populations or experts that were actively helping their economies, like the French in Côte d'Ivoire or the Indians in Uganda.
I'm probably missing some things here. There are loads of tiny communist movements I can't keep track of. Inform
Yeah, it's
me
just
of
the
some
same.
in the comments.
It's the same. Yeah.
Oh, it is the same
Making
map.
both
Okay.
countries significantly poorer. Alternatively, look at how countries like Venezuela and Cuba will put themselves into
Christ, these
poverty and
fucking
Russian
little
influence in order to
prompts.
escape corporate influence.
This
that
is
object-
not how you do. Like, this is terrible. Like, who looks? I'm sorry, but
You either
can
have
someone
to.
explain to me, like who likes this content?
Well, you can't read it and watch it at the same time because it's too much text to read and listen to what he's saying, and he's saying
Also,
too
the
much
way
too
that
fast.
it's boring. It's so boring. Like, look at that. Who wants to read that?
I don't know.
There's not even an indentation. You have to put it on fucking full screen.
I don't know.
You don't have to actually.
It's not going to reformat because I put it onto full screen. It's a YouTube video.
No, I thought don't they put like the bars or whatever that don't. Maybe maybe hold on. I think I'm mixing up something. Whatever. Don't worry
I
about
think
it.
you are, yeah.
actively making their countries wealthier. A perfect example of envy coming from the right is the Nazis. The German Jews were significantly wealthier than non-Jewish Germans and were
Hey, he gets points here. The Nazis aren't leftists.
Oh shit! You're right. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
instrumental in the formation of a bunch of key industries. German Jews were assimilating German-speaking and were often deeply patriotic. However, this only made the envy worse and the German desire to kill them greater. The Holocaust is another example of envy's powerful force.
I think it's a mistake to characterize it as envy. I think there was a conspiracy about them being networked with anti-German powers, as well as like the long history of anti-Semitism, like largely around the same lines. Like they were considered an outgroup that had connections abroad and things like that. They were conceived of as not integrating in fact, even when they did very much so.
Yeah, even what is it called? Anti-communism as well, with the whole Judeo-Bolshevik sort of.
Yeah, and if
Conspiracy
it was envy rooted, they would be targeting the rich, not just the Jews. So.
No, we can't talk about the rich.
Okay, I'm going to make a controversial claim, but you need to stick with
Oh.
me. The underlying basis of social justice philosophy is envy. I'll give 2 examples. The first of which is the fat body positive movement. This basically shames society for saying thin, fit girls are beautiful and fat girls aren't. However, objectively, thin people are healthier than fat people in real terms, which the modern left
No.
says...
That's incorrect. That's absolutely incorrect.
Also, like, he's proving himself wrong with this picture here.
Yeah, you see, like, look... Okay. At the end of the day, like, you know, bodies vary, and that's kind of the
Yes.
fundamental thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, there's...
No, but he's showing an extreme of thinness, right? Like,
Yeah.
so like some of these people could be perfectly healthy. They just have like fast metabolisms or whatever. This is how they form. Like that happens. But like you can't just say absolutely thin people are more healthy than fat people, and then explicitly depict people who look extremely thin and potentially like, you know, undernourished.
is fat shaming to say. I know modern society pushes unhealthy body expectations, but going the other direction is more ridiculous. Similarly, standards of beauty, although they fluctuate a bit, are still tied to evolutionary biology. If you get an Indian, Chinese, or German guy in a room together and have them rate women on their...
No, when you look at like Renaissance painting of attractive women, they are significantly, like, they have significantly more mass than the people you will see on the covers of magazines today.
Yeah. Well, hold on, wait. Go back just like by 5 seconds. What like he's saying? Oh, you know you can use like your arrows, right? On your
How can I
keyboard.
do that?
Yeah, your arrows.
I don't understand how this newfangled technology works.
Bit are still tied to evolutionary biology.
Okay, maybe not. Hold on, wait.
Okay, let's
like
just go.
J and L. Yeah, just you can do that like that. Yeah.
Fit girls are beautiful and fat girls aren't. However, objectively,
Here,
thin people are healthier than fat people in real terms, which the modern left says is fat shaming to say. I know modern society pushes unhealthy body expectations, but going the other direction is more ridiculous. Similarly, standards of beauty, although they fluctuate a bit, are still tied to evolutionary biology. If you get an Indian, Chinese, or German guy in a room together and have them rate women on their beauty, they'd line up quite a bit. Similarly, paintings of beautiful women and art from previous eras still hold up today.
Okay, well, no, actually. This person would likely not end up on your average magazine at the cash register. Same with this one.
Yeah, and also, why are we only why are we only looking at that? I mean, why aren't we looking at, like, for example, I know in some cultures within like West Africa, they have especially like...
Oh yeah, like the little like the Venus de Urbino, or I think is what it's called, like the little statue thing.
Yeah, or like I know, for example,
that might be something else.
For us, we don't tend to like really, saggy breasts, right, on women.
Yeah.
But for them, like they, that's something that they quite like, or they think that's like very beautiful.
Well, he's also being selective with his paintings here, because there are period paintings, not period, but like there are paintings of like Queen Dido from the Aeneid, where she looks again like significantly like larger than this. So
a lot of this is affected by television, and I know like they even did studies where they found, places like in Indonesia where they didn't have a lot of television beforehand, and when they started and they kind of tracked before, I forgot exactly, I need to get like the study, but they tracked before they had the television, I guess sort of mental illnesses or whatever, disorders that were being diagnosed, and the moment that they started having television, a lot of what is it called, like body dysmorphic disorders, like bulimia, nervosa, or like anorexia, like started to crop up.
Somebody made an interesting observation. What does he mean by still hold up today?
Yeah, I don't know. And also, another thing that gets me is that oftentimes, especially when we're talking about the worldwide here, it's not just simply like the body in terms of like fatness or something like that, but it's also things like height, skin, right? Like having lighter skin is seen as more attractive, or I mean, even I know in
well, associated with
Japan
opulence because you're out of the sun.
Yeah, or like Japanese people and Chinese people and Korean people or any other group that has epicanthic folds, they have a whole little industry out of just chopping off their epicanthic folds because it's they don't think that they don't think it's attractive. Or at least now
I'm
they don't.
gonna be totally honest with you. I don't know what that is.
Oh, epicanthic fold. Sorry. So like Asian people, their eyes like they have that little fold of skin that makes it look like their
Oh, you
eyes are
mean
smaller or whatever.
oh, I see, like sort of between, like in the middle of the brow kind of thing.
Yeah, it's called an epicanthic fold.
They cut those off? Why would they do that?
They do it
Ugh.
because they look more like white women, basically.
Ugh.
It's a thing. Yeah, it's actually a thing.
I hate surgery around the eyeballs.
There's a real market value for beauty that's objective. The only possible answer is that ugly girls are enviously trying to tear down the real advantages beautiful women have, which they either got to genetic luck, working out, or putting themselves together well. Another example is BIPOC, which stands for Black Indigenous People of Color.
Why is it always specifically women too? Like there's no. Hey! Every major communist leader has been a fat man. Coincidence?
Yes.
The term people of color to describe all non-white people was weakened by Asians and Hispanics' greater wealth and assimilation into American society, and thus the term was shortened to Black Indigenous people of color. The thing we forget here is that Asians in a lot of ways faced legal discrimination as bad, if not worse, than black people in the 20th century. However, due to advantages in cultural capital, Asians and Hispanics have done better than blacks and indigenous people. Although
Okay,
discrimination surely...
I don't want to do the whole Olympics here, but it's not just simply about like policy, right? It's about specifically that what relation that race has. Like at the end of the day, yes, like Asian people, they can reach a status such as, for example, like the whole model minority thing, or let's say how Italians, they used to be fucked over. But now they can reach the status of basically just being, your everyday white people, but black people can't, right? Black people obviously have been here way longer than Italians and most like Asian populations, and yet they're still at the position that they were, just after slavery, or, So I don't, yeah, that's just completely false.
Let's let him run.
Sorry, I just,
Let's let him run for a couple more seconds, and then we'll evaluate this.
As a factor, you can't mark all inequities up to it. Just look at how different subgroups of black people have wildly fluctuating incomes. African Americans of West Indian immigrant ancestry are significantly wealthier than those of native black ancestry. Alternatively, black people whose ancestors were free before the Civil War have consistently been 50 years ahead of black people who had slave ancestors in stuff like education, money, and the like. With the term BIPOC, the fact is that we aren't celebrating the success of the Asian and Hispanic community, but instead focusing just on the continued oppression of the black and indigenous, which precludes any explanation except envy.
What?
No. Or
No.
maybe because only because envy. Oh my fucking
Look,
God.
guys, you're all complaining about the oppression, and we're trying to party here.
I'm sorry to say, like, I'm not trying to play the whole Olympics card, but at the end of the
Yeah.
day, at least when it comes to the American context, black people were enslaved, and I would, of course, argue, are still enslaved to this day. Indigenous people were genocided. I don't know what else to tell you. Like, like what the fuck?
Well, I think that's, yeah. I mean, he's sort of making that point as well. For some reason, I'm not entirely following. I guess I just don't know what the point is.
He's just, I don't know, he's just trying to make something out of nothing. I mean, you can have like all your arguments that you could or whatever about this. I mean, there is arguments to be had, but to just let it be put to just envy, idiocy. It's just idiocy.
Well, I think, okay, so just going back quickly, I'm not going to rerun it, but, like here, although in a lot of ways black people have been really mistreated by the American system, we have to remember that Asians face some really bad discrimination, like being forbidden. Okay, so he's...
as bad, if not worse, than black people in the 20th. Asian discrimination surely is a fact.
Yeah, so he's talking about the exclusion of Asians, I guess, from the progressive stack or something amongst some people. I don't know who he's talking about because he doesn't cite anything, but... And I guess, like, that's due to envy, which I guess is plausible. But...
saying all of it must be driven by oppression. It ignores that every single category of anything across history and geography is naturally deeply unequal. Similarly, it views success as zero-sum in that the oppressors must stop oppressing, rather than the unsuccessful should find things to emulate in the successful.
Yeah, those stupid leftists, they just think the oppressors should stop oppressing instead of, the oppressed people just pulling themselves up by their
Yeah, black people, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
giant mammoth killing ball sacks.
This is the
Jesus Christ.
That was a reference to the thing from before, to be clear, in case it sounded random.
Yeah.
dictionary
Okay,
definition
just making
of
sure.
envious viewpoint. An
President
interesting
Sunday out
phenomenon.
of context.
I have to upload that by itself now, just without context, completely. Just
On social justice has been that it's primarily driven by upper middle class people, which has a lot of reasons behind it, but one of which is that our brains are still wired towards the scale of a tribal hunter-gatherer band. Thus, if you were
What
too
the fuck are you
successful, you would
talking
worry
about?
that
I don't know. I guess these multicultural upper class
Hold on.
people who are advocating on behalf of groups that aren't them are just like, that's just a tribal brain going.
It's just tribal, or the fact that, so for example, with black people, and particularly black people like within these movements, obviously it's not just a tribe because they're talking about black people. You know, like what black people are? That's fucking millions upon millions of people.
Yeah.
That's even outside of the U.S. So I don't like this.
Who?
That's beyond the tribe.
Yeah.
There's no tribe here.
Yeah, who or like in this particular case, are being mistreated by a police apparatus that is not tribally specific. Even at that level of
Or even-
analysis. So
Yeah, or even
Yeah.
like indigenous people of, whatever ethnic group they're part of, they speak for for all of the indigenous people, which again, we're talking about millions of people here, all across the world. Because
Yeah.
I mean, especially if you stretch out like indigenous, you're not just getting into like the Americas here.
yeah, well, like again, like we're talking about people who are protesting the activities of their states. That's not tribal.
Yeah.
someone else would try to take it from you.
It's anti-tribal,
Convoluted as it
actually.
sounds, when wealthy children preach socialism, they subconsciously worry that their unearned privilege will make them targets for social recrimination, and thus want to start that process itself so it won't devour them. This is the only way that it makes sense to me.
Okay. Like,
What
people,
is this fashion, bro?
I don't know. That looks deeply uncomfortable. It looks like plastic.
Also,
Yeah.
look at streetwear in general fashion, in which people try to dress like they're poor in order to not provoke others' envy. Well,
Yeah, you walk. This is how poor people dress. Like just when you go to the
wait.
homeless shelter, everyone's wearing this.
Yes, you wear Supreme, so no one envies you, right? Because Supreme, that's like a poor brand, right? You walk out with your Yeezy, T-shirt. That's
you're-
like no, yeah, that's just poverty.
Your designer hobo sunglasses and your
Yeah.
gold, your gold vagabond chains, and your phone and everything. Her hand is literally covered in rings.
while also wearing expensive versions of poor people's clothing to still show that they're high value. Similarly, look at the culture
So
of
then they
children.
can't. Those conflict. If it's obviously high value and people know it, then obviously it's not for. What the fuck? Like that doesn't make any sense. Okay, whatever.
I
Just
don't
continue
know.
on.
I'm just really
This is so
self-conscious about my
stupid.
outfit now. Apparently, this is what poor people wear, which I guess makes sense.
in which people like to say they're into vibing, chilling, smoking weed, and watching Netflix, which I guess is fun for some people, but isn't something you should be bragging about in a healthy society. Youth culture today is literally about being an antisocial,
Dude, trust me, that is healthy society. That is healthy society. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Well, no. Healthy society is you go out and you fight the barbarian with your spear, and you accrue a noble pedigree or a portfolio on your body of wounds that you've accrued for your country, and then you go home to your wife and children who have prepared a pie for you, I suppose, and then you go to the tavern or something. I don't know what this is.
No, I think honestly, no, it's just that's just the upper echelons. That's the Jeff Bezos, because every Jeff Bezos, they had to kill a mammoth to get what they're at. But what is done in a healthy society is basically you go home, you open the Bible, read some pages, or at least pretend you are, and then you watch a What If Alt His video with your friends, and you say, "This is an amazing piece of work. I really love it.
No.
Like, subscribe." And also check out Magellan TV.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong. In a good society, this is what a what if autist video looks like. It's just like exactly.
Hold on, wait, real quick.
Yeah.
Hold on. You notice right there, enjoyed on the bottom, themselves rather than vices to be enjoyed.
The generation partying, drugs, chilling are puts as goods in of themselves rather than vices to be enjoyed and then put away.
No,
Partying is not rebellion. Hey, you know what that sounds like? Revolution is not a dinner party. Who said that?
Wait, revolution is... I don't know.
He says right here, partying is not rebellion.
Is this referencing something? I'm sorry, I don't know.
It is, but I just want to make sure I get it right before I make an ass of myself. One sec.
What I was focusing on was the fact that he didn't use the E, he used the C for the beginning of enjoy.
Hang on.
Enjoy. Enjoyed.
Yeah, I was right.
I like that.
That was Mao.
Oh, did he?
Revolution is
Okay,
not a dinner party, yeah. It was either Stalin or Mao, and I was mixing them up.
Again, this is similar to the old Haitian story we talked about before of trying to show you're not trying to be better than someone else by working harder or trying to be more successful than them.
Why does he keep saying as if only Haitians have said this? It's kind of like when my mom said, like, oh, there's a Dominican saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Like, something like... Like, that's not a Haitian thing. I can't imagine. Isn't that just a general idea? Like,
what culture is it that just says it is what it is?
It is what it is. I don't know.
'Cause there's that meme. The guy's like, it is what it is.
Historical figures as an envy for the past. In real objective terms, what does our generation accomplish in comparison to our forefather?
Churchill was a racist. He was an insane racist.
No, he wasn't racist. What are you talking about?
He also killed a bunch of great communists. He was not a nice guy.
They won the world wars, ended disease and real grinding poverty, reached the moon, ended slavery, did actual legal changes to deal with discrimination, tamed thousands of miles of...
They also, like, started slavery, but whatever.
Wilderness and beat tyrannies. When we tear down the statues of figures like Churchill, write histories without dead white males, or cut Shakespeare out of the curriculum, we enviously destroy their memories so that we don't have to think about them and how we don't hold up.
I think that's a painting of Rousseau, and I don't know why he's got this here.
The internet
honestly
really
just looks like every other, 1700s white dude. So...
pushes this process that it allows people to show the worst parts of their personalities without recrimination. I find it depressing you see really brutal and mean comments to people posting online trying to improve themselves. Similarly, how often interesting ideas online just get circle-jerked and hated without actual addressing of their validity. Places like Reddit and 4chan deride everything because they don't have to hold themselves to any standards. To cancel a famous person is to tear down a successful person that you could be judged against.
This guy is really mad about his coverage on the Bad History subreddit.
Damn.
There are two ways to answer this, in both the broad social level and the individual. On the social one, we should try to copy what the West has done. Martin Luther King's message of judging people as individuals for their moral value rather than judging them for their group identity like the rich, the Jews, etc. is the way forward. We need to have the Christian message that all people, even if they've done evil, still deserve love. If someone you know is successful or happy, be happy for them and try to emulate them. Belief in objective truth is important. Once you let human emotions and attitudes dominate, like social justice with its belief in the ultimate arbitering power of the subjective experiences of oppressed people, or religions that have gone astray which put the desires of groups above moral good, you've got a problem. Instead, to fight envy, we need to believe in objective truth and good so as to not sink into the weaknesses inherent in human nature. On an individual basis, don't surrender.
What's objective truth and good? Well, it comes from this ancient Roman compilation of religious texts from this specific subculture.
Yeah, makes sense.
Envious. They will only envy you more. A great example is that oftentimes the most assimilated merchant middlemen groups like the Chinese in Indonesia or the Jews in Hungary or Germany have often been the most oppressed. Another example is with cancel culture. Figures like Trump or Brett Kavanaugh, who, for all their faults, give no fucks, never get cancelled while leftist figures that try to placate social justice get eaten alive. The key to getting away with envy as an individual lies with celebrities and aristocrats. These are people who are almost never envied since they're not comparable to normal people. If you're a wealthy person with a big house who's envied by all your middle class...
I think they're not... they are envied, first of all, but I think they're primarily not envied by a lot of people because they're also clowns, and that's kind of... like, we ridicule celebrities now, so... you don't really want to be compared to them because they're silly.
Neighbors, move to a yacht off the coast of France and you'll mentally be beyond envy of your local community. If you act like your status is exclusive and innate, others will not feel judged as they won't feel like they could be you. The other way is to be nondescript with wealth, living like Asians have, keeping all of your wealth on the interior. None of this is fail-safe, however. To end on a depressing note, just look at the Jews who have tried every single trick in order to not be oppressed, and it still kept on happening. What a faultist, and thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that video...
What kind of ending was that? I guess that's it? Alright.
That's the moral of the story.
I don't know. I don't even know what to say. Like...
I have a question. Like, okay, so you know how like I'm gonna be referencing something very esoteric, but not esoteric. So, you know those like hunting games, like the video games where like it's like real hunting simulator, basically.
Yeah.
You ever wonder, like they have like these weird names or whatever, or like big fishing or something like that. It's like some, yeah.
Or like Cabela's.
Basically, you look at those games and you're like, who the fuck plays these? That's kind of what I'm thinking about with What If All His. Like, who watches this? I'm not talking about the people who obviously like us. I mean, we just watched it obviously, but like people who are watching it to hate it. But like,
well,
who are those 13K who like this?
Let's look at his regular content here. So, he used to be like primarily alt history, right?
Yeah. What If All His?
So if you go to what if Russia never colonized Siberia? That's weirdly specific. What if America went full colonial? Things like that. But then interspersed, and this is actually the majority of his content, you have how envy drives society. We just saw that. Why were the pyramids built? Is China naturally authoritarian? The four trends of the 21st century. Like he's basically just making polemics against modernity, against communism, and against left-wing commentators in general. But very badly. And he's uncharismatic. So I'm as stumped as you are. I don't know what on earth people see in this, because it's actual garbage. I don't think I've ever seen something as consistently low quality as this, but it is consistent.
Just especially the quality. Like, the quality is just so...
And it's not even like, when we're talking about quality, it's not even like, oh, this was like made in MS Paint. It's like he can't even be bothered to have like functional sentence structure a good part of the time.
Yeah, it's just like shit script, PowerPoint presentation level, like pictures that have no meaning whatsoever, maps that have no like, it's just...
No explanation,
yeah.
Often no legend. I don't know.
I don't know.
I
don't know. Yeah.
Every time we review one of these, I'm just left there. Like, there's just...
Yeah, there's like...
it's like, well, that was a thing.
It's like post-nut clarity or something.
Well, anyways, it's got to be really late for you.
Yeah, it is 12:27, but yeah, we can head off here.
Okay. Let me see if there's any...
Thank you all for watching.
You're just gonna
happy to be here.
You're just gonna close off my show. You're not gonna let me do it. You're just taking over.
Yeah. Yeah. I was saying bye to everybody because like they don't know me.
Okay, fair
enough.
They
have. Well, they know me as I'm because I'm Mr. Mediker, right? But, like they don't know me. Yeah.
So guys, Mr. Mediker's not dead, and if you want to interact with him, he's one of my server mods. So
Yes.
you should join the Cathedral, because Medicare is woke now.
Yeah, and the moment that you come into the chat, I'm just gonna yell at you. Okay? Just like no holds bar. I'll just do that. So, be ready for that.
Yeah. Alright, well, bye. Thank you for coming on. Let's do this again
Bye.
sometime. Actually, quickly before you go,
Yes.
one of the reasons why I wanted to chat with you here was as a bit of a tech trial, because we're going to be talking about Dune very shortly.
Oh yeah.
Pretty extensively.
We're still live, right?
Oh yeah, we are. So we're gonna
Okay,
be
cool.
we're gonna be looking at like the economics of Dune. We're gonna be looking at like stuff that makes sense, stuff that doesn't make sense, how the houses function, how religion works, all that stuff. So if you enjoyed no name brand Mr. Medicare, there will be more to come, and he's significantly more entertaining than I am, so that's a good thing. Anyways, you take care, and thanks everybody for watching. I'm asserting my dominance now. I'm signing off. Thanks everybody for watching, and have a good night.
Night.